Farmer saw baby in the field, looked closely and realized shocking details. This story took place in a small town near Kazan in the 1980s. A man named Viktor Kuznetsov, he was engaged in the care of his sheep and in agriculture. Since his adolescence, he's devoted himself to this. During the summer, he worked in his fields, and in the winter, with the help of his wife, he made clothes for the cold season. He also had great control over the animals of his farm. In fact, his superstition obeyed him and seemed to appreciate him. The couple lived very well, but something was missing. If not, everything would have been great. As you can see, Viktor knew his wife in his youth. They got married. Farmer saw baby in the field, looked closely and realized shocking details. With a lot of love, and soon tried to have children, but unfortunately the virgin who wanted it did not arrive. It was a year, 2 years, and they couldn't experience parenting. So they went to a local doctor to discover the exact problem. Remember that in those days there were no modern equipment like the one we have today to help women get pregnant. Even if they did, the couple did not have the financial means to pay the expenses. The doctor examined the woman and soon got the result. "Your wife can't have children," the doctor told Viktor. "I'm so sorry, and I can't do anything." "I'm really sorry," he stared at his wife. It was very unexpected news, but before thinking about it, he just helped his wife get out of the sadness she felt when she remembered that she couldn't have children. She said, "It's better to get away from me, Viktor. You have the right to your happiness." The man answered with tears in his eyes, "No, woman, you are my happiness. God knows why he does things." Since then, they have both lived in a broken dream. Perhaps this is why the man was in harmony with animals. He tried to soothe his soul and gather his thoughts. Everything went as usual. Viktor was dripping all his sheep in late spring and preparing wool for sale, or keep with him a little to make coats with his wife. He also took care of the young lambs to be sold later. In the summer he grew corn and beans and helped the city market sell. So he didn't have time to feel sad. At that time, you had to work if you wanted to live a life free of worries. When he turned 30, something important happened. It was the coldest winter of the last decade. It was July of 1928. All windows of the house were closed. The heating had to be turned on all the time at the expense of firewood and fire. And the dog we loved spending the night in the yard. It was hiding in the house at night, lying beside the fireplace, and sleeping peacefully in the morning. The farmer woke up as usual, and while breakfast was at the table, he and his wife talked about what they had to do during the day. As she started preparing to sell some cakes at home, the farmer went to feed his animals. A lot of snow fell that night, and by morning it was finally clear. The farmer went down to the yard and felt something was wrong. He freaked out. He thought his sheep had escaped, but they were all in place. The man sighed with satisfaction. He threw hay at them and watched the sheep run happily to eat. At that moment, his smile changed. There was a missing sheep. In fact, it was the one which was always associated with him and was always running to him when Viktor came. Moreover, it was different from the rest of its entire herd. It was the youngest and most limp. The farmer has never experienced anything like that. That was the first time one of his animals had escaped. But how? He wondered if it could not run well because of its slight disability. So he went to look for it. He searched every corner of his yard, but nothing. He went out on the same road as Viktor, taking his sheep to eat grass on the mountain. He walked deep into the area. He touched his beloved sheep. And then, it was a little hard to see the footprint. It was very white, and there was no much contrast with the snow. It was lying half a mile from the house. But how did you get here? And because it was the only place it went out, the farmer ran to look. Did you freeze? He ran towards it. He sat on the floor and began to remove the snow with his bare hands. But his beloved sheep did not rise, and only when he removed all the ice from it, he finally understood why it did not move. It was hiding under its body a little child. It was obvious. The sheep were warming the child all that time. The farmer immediately took the child with his cold hands. With that feeling, the little child woke up. Surprisingly, his skin was very warm. It was as if he had not spent the night in extreme cold, perhaps less than 20 degrees. The farmer couldn't believe what he was watching. He took him home, and on the way, he wondered how all that happened. His wife at the time was making dough for cakes. The man opened the door desperately and entered the house, and the child in his arms. The wife was astonished. "Who is this child?" The farmer tried to explain what had happened, but his wife asked him to calm down. They began together to examine the child, who was actually a little girl. She was about 2 years old and seemed to be in good health. She was wearing thick clothes. And nothing else. Everything was fine with her. However, there was a mystery. How did she get to them? And because the girl hasn't woken up yet, the woman made garden tea to soothe herself and her husband. They both didn't know what to do. This was the first time a child had entered their home. The girl finally woke up. The woman gave her something to eat carefully, gave her a cup of tea, and in silence, the little girl drank and smiled. She obviously liked the tea. "Maybe she's hungry," the woman said. "It's a pity the cakes aren't ready yet." However, some were already in the kitchen preparing. After a few minutes, she put them in a dish and fed her little by little. The little girl was eating eagerly. Then the woman said, "But how did she get here?" Then the little girl sat on the bed. "What's your name?" the farmer asked. The child looked at him and she was silent. The man repeated his question but never got an answer again. Victor repeated his question. "Maybe she can't even speak," commented his wife. The man nodded his head. However, since he did not get an answer, he himself decided to verify her source. He told his wife that he would go to the nearby houses. Thus, Victor went out to investigate. The girl's appearance was a very strange phenomenon. First of all, the couple lived in a remote place, where there were only a few houses where more elderly people lived. The departing man asked the neighbors, but no one knew anything. He had no more to ask. He decided to examine where he found the child. He went back there, and somehow, the same sheep that took care of the girl ran towards him. It's amazing how the night went unsheltered and didn't freeze. "You're very strong," Victor said. It was definitely a miracle. The man wondered if he could find any footprints, but nothing. Everything was covered in snow. However, the man decided, for some reason, to dig down where he found the child. He didn't really expect anything, but he soon felt something with his hands. There was a paper note. He opened it. There were some words. However, the man could not read and could not understand what it was saying. So he came home. At the time, the girl was playing with the family dog. She seemed very happy. That man showed the note to his wife. A woman who knows how to read opened it and read it. "Forgive me, but I can't take you with me." Everything began to take shape. No doubt they left the girl deliberately. The woman said, "How can they leave such a fragile girl in an unknown place, in the bitter cold?" and paper with a simple apology. The man was angry. He came out again. Across the fields and nearby houses. But no one. There was no suspicious person. Then he came home and opened the door. At that time, the wife was carrying the child in her arms. When the farmer saw her, tears returned to his eyes. He's seen what he's dreamed of most of his life. A whole family with a girl and a wife. Finally, the child slept and the couple had a conversation to determine what to do with her. Although there was nothing special to discuss, they decided that it was better to be at home. And to be what God wanted. So the couple kept the little one, and they called her Katrina. They raised her as their daughter and worked harder. So she didn't miss anything. Katrina began to grow and she didn't know how her parents found her. They didn't tell her anything either. She soon started calling them Mom and Dad. The farmer and his wife were happy. The girl also befriended the sheep which took care of her and saved her. Though she did not remember that unfortunate night. And so it's been several more years and it's time when the sheep grew up. The whole family was worried about their favorite sheep. But it's time it died. Katrina was very sad about its departure, and when it happened, she ran away from home. She sat next to a tree that was on the way. An old lady noticed tears in the girl's eyes and asked her, "Did they tell you you were adopted? Don't be sad. The important thing is that they love you." Katrina began confused, asking the old woman what she meant. The older woman realized that she had made a mistake and left. The girl ran home and asked her parents if what the old woman told her was true. The man opened a box, took out a piece of paper, and then informed his daughter. And when she read it, she couldn't resist crying. The man told her how it really happened and how Katrina got to them. The girl said she needed to think. The family spent a tense night. Katrina was approaching them and she simply said, "You are my only parents and I need no more." Years later, that girl became a woman and told her own story. There is no doubt that Katrina is grateful to the wonderful fathers whom destiny gave her. She also said that the case had never been investigated. Her parents wrote it in the register as their daughter. They gave her last name and her first name. Undoubtedly, life rewarded Victor and his wife with a beautiful daughter who supported them and took care of them in their old age.